$250 million. That's how much money was poured into building what was supposed to be the most revolutionary tractor ever made. It was electric. It was autonomous. It could supposedly drive itself through your vineyard while you sat on your porch drinking coffee. Time magazine called it one of the best inventions of 2023. Forbes called it the next billion-dollar company. And then it destroyed everything. The company, the investors, the dealers, the farmers who trusted it. This is the story of the most expensive farming failure in modern history, and how a single tractor brought down a $500 million empire. It all started in 2012 in Hyderabad, India. A mechanical engineer named Praveen Penmetsa, a guy who'd spent years building batteries for companies like Toshiba and Panasonic, went home to visit family. And while he was there, he talked to local farmers. What they told him changed the direction of his entire life. There is no future in farming. That phrase haunted him. And here's what made it worse. When he came back to California and talked to American farmers, they said the exact same thing. Different continent, different crops, same hopelessness. So Penmetsa had an idea. What if you could build a tractor that was electric, no fuel costs, autonomous, no labor costs, and smart enough to collect data that could make every farm more profitable? He wasn't just going to build a tractor, he was going to save farming itself. And the team he assembled? It read like an Avengers lineup for agriculture. Mark Schwager, the guy who oversaw the construction of Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada. Carlo Mondavi, yes, that Mondavi, fourth-generation member of the most famous winemaking dynasty in America. And Zachary Omohundro, a robotics PhD who'd built autonomous systems for mining companies. Silicon Valley meets Napa Valley. In 2018, they founded Monarch Tractor in Livermore, California, and the hype was immediate. But here's the thing nobody was asking yet. Can these people actually build a tractor that works? Hold that thought. Because before anyone answered that question, the money started pouring in, and I mean pouring. CNH Industrial, one of the two biggest farm equipment companies on earth, invested in 20. That's like Coca-Cola investing in your lemonade stand. It was a massive stamp of approval. Then Foxconn, the company that literally builds iPhones, signed on to manufacture the tractors at a facility in Ohio. Former Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg came on as an investor and advisor. By 2024, Monarch had raised over $240 million in venture capital. The company was valued at $518 million, just shy of being a unicorn. Penmetsa was named Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young. Forbes put him on their sustainability leaders list. He was invited to Jeff Bezos' secretive Mars conference, rubbing shoulders with the biggest names in AI and robotics, and their flagship product, the MKV, looked incredible on paper. A 40-horsepower electric tractor designed for vineyards and specialty crops, 10-hour battery life, camera-guided navigation, and the magic words that got everyone excited: driver optional. That meant this thing could drive itself. At least, that's what everyone was told. The price tag? Up to $100,000 per unit. But the government was offering subsidies of nearly $69,000 per tractor. So basically, farmers could get a piece of the future at a steep discount. It sounded too good to be true, and that's because it was. Here's where it gets ugly. Because there's a massive difference between a tractor working in a demo video and a tractor working on an actual farm. And the farmers who bought these machines found that out the hard way. Patrick O'Connor is a winemaker in California. He tested the Monarch tractor for 3 full years on his vineyard. 3 years. And after all that time, here's what he said in a video that went viral with over 25,000 likes. It totally failed. But that wasn't even the worst part. He also called it actually quite dangerous. The autonomous driving feature, it kept hitting his vines. The hydraulics, constantly finicky. The driver optional mode, he said he couldn't find a single serious use for it and wouldn't let anyone else near the machine. After 3 years of testing, the most advanced tractor in the world had been reduced to a glorified wheelbarrow. O'Connor literally used it to haul tools around his vineyard and plug power tools into its battery, a $100,000 mobile power strip. But O'Connor's experience wasn't unique. And this is where it goes from bad to catastrophic. An Idaho dealer called Monarch Tractor had invested over $773,000 in 10 Monarch MKV tractors. They were all in, early adopters, true believers, and when the machines arrived, the autonomous features barely worked. Some of the tractors couldn't even function indoors, and here's the detail that makes your jaw drop. Monarch's own sales team eventually admitted, in writing, that the autonomy was limited and the tractors were unable to operate autonomously as represented. In writing, their own people confessed that the core selling point of the product was essentially a lie. Monarch Tractor sued. Other dealerships followed. And suddenly, the company that was supposed to save farming was being taken to court by the very people it was supposed to help. Now, remember Carlo Mondavi, the winemaking legend who co-founded the company? He left. About a year before the collapse, he later said publicly that the tractors had real first-gen challenges and that farmers shouldn't be the ones carrying that burden. When a co-founder jumps ship and calls out his own product, you know the building is on fire. By late 2025, Monarch Tractor was in full crisis mode. An internal memo leaked that said the company was at risk of shutdown. Employees were warned about layoffs, but publicly, the awards kept coming. The press coverage stayed glowing. The gap between the image and the reality was a canyon, and the numbers tell a brutal story. Monarch raised $240 million total. They produced approximately 500 tractors. Do the math. That's roughly $480,000 in capital burned for every single tractor that rolled off the line. For context, you could buy a small house for less than what it cost to produce each of these machines, and they couldn't even sell them all. At shutdown, over 110 tractors were still sitting unsold. That's more than 1 in 5 tractors they ever made, just gathering dust. Meanwhile, the broader market was working against them too. North American demand for large tractors had dropped 31%. Farmers aren't like tech early adopters. They don't experiment with their core equipment. When your livelihood depends on whether a machine works during a 2-week planting window, you don't gamble on version 1 of anything. And that's the irony nobody talks about. Monarch's CEO once told Forbes he was driven to fight the fights that need fighting. But the fight he picked, convincing the most risk-averse buyers on the planet to trust unproven technology, was one that $240 million couldn't win. CNH Industrial, the agricultural giant that had backed Monarch early on, took a $62 million write-down on their investment. $62 million. Gone. On April 3, 2026, Monarch Tractor shut down. Not a pivot, not a restructuring, a shutdown. They fired every single employee, vacated their headquarters in Livermore, California. Over 110 unsold tractors sat abandoned in their facility like tombstones. The attorneys representing the company in its lawsuits, some of them quit the case. That's the legal equivalent of a captain swimming away from a sinking ship. And the farmers, the ones who bought these machines, they were left with expensive equipment that had no support, no software updates, no warranty service, and no company behind it. If something breaks, there's nobody to call. You've got a $100,000 paperweight sitting in your barn. Let me put the full scope of this disaster into perspective. A company with a Tesla veteran, a Mondavi heir, a robotics PhD, backing from one of the world's largest tractor companies, manufacturing by the company that builds iPhones, a Time Magazine Best Invention Award, a Forbes Next Billion-Dollar Startup label, $240 million in funding, and a $518 million valuation, couldn't build a tractor that worked. That sentence sounds like it can't be real, but it is. So what went wrong? The technology wasn't ready. The promises were too big, and the market, farmers didn't care about awards or press coverage or Silicon Valley hype. They cared about one thing. Does this machine actually work when I need it to? The answer was no, and no amount of venture capital could change that. There's a number that captures this entire story. Monarch spent roughly $480,000 per tractor produced. They sold them for around $100,000. You don't need an MBA to know that math doesn't work. They were lighting money on fire and calling it innovation, but the deeper lesson here goes beyond one company. Agriculture is not consumer tech. A farmer doesn't get 365 chances per year to experiment. They get maybe 40 planting seasons in a lifetime. Every single decision has real financial consequences. When O'Connor said the tractor was hitting his vines, that wasn't a bug. That was damage to his crop. That was money out of his family's pocket. Monarch tried to disrupt an industry that has a simple, brutal test for every new product. Does it work right now? In my field? Today? Not will it work eventually. Not is the vision exciting. Does it work? And this is a warning that extends far beyond farming. In the age of AI and autonomy, dozens of companies are making extraordinary promises about what their technology can do. Self-driving cars, autonomous delivery robots, AI-powered everything. Monarch's story is proof that hype and funding and awards and magazine covers don't mean a single thing if the product doesn't deliver. $250 million, a dream team of founders, the backing of giants. And at the end of it all, a field full of silent, abandoned tractors that couldn't do the one thing they were built to do. The machine that was supposed to save farming ended up as the most expensive cautionary tale in agricultural history. If this story stuck with you, drop a like. If you think more people should hear about this, subscribe. Because these are the kinds of stories that nobody else is telling. I'll see you in the next one.